and be. Great is the love we should have for family. We should be united whenever we stand.
Good afternoon and welcome to the news. I am Doreen Kalokoh. Coming up in this edition of News are Environment Protection Agency (EPA) shut down the operations of the Shenzhen Mining Company. Ministry of Agriculture commissions the National Livestock, Animal Welfare and Rabies Control Task Force in Freetown, and Government of Sierra Leone signs a MOU with the Integrated Solution for Africa International Entrepreneurship for the improvement of agriculture in the country. All the stories, including business and sports, lined up in this edition of News Hour. The Director General of the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation, Elvis Banabum Alwell, has stressed the need to maintain trained cameramen with the required equipment in changing from analog to digital system. The Director General was speaking at a 4-day training organized for cameramen drawn from SLBC, Star TV and AYV, organized by the Muslim television based in the UK. Here is the reports. Corporation prepares to transform from an analog to digital system. The training of cameramen from various broadcasting houses is vital for professional service delivery. The aim is to teach them the new techniques of camera operation to improve on their content of television programs. Director General of the Sierra Leone Broadcasting Corporation, Elvis Banabum Alowell, says that despite the importance attached to training people, it is of essence that television station be provided with the required facilities to do an effective television show. He adds that at the moment the SLBC is working towards a transformation from analog to digital system. The Director General assures that his focus is to embark on a series of documentary with the required content that will be good for television broadcasting.
This is what, gives us a relationship, both African television and the European television. And we want to make use of it. We want not only getting the training, but you can get the training, but if you do not have the equipment, you're in trouble. So we're looking forward to this kind of situation, where we can improve both our techniques and our equipment. We're working on that, because that migrating from analog to digital means you have to have the necessary equipment.
Chief Coordinator of the Muslim Television Ahmadiyya Sierra Leone informs that they are a faith-based television station that operates on 3 satellites. He says that the training is to transfer knowledge and skills for an effective television production done out of a memorandum signed to train Sierra Leonean cameramen to expose them with the modern techniques, especially when the SLBC is soon to move from analog to a digital system. SLBC's head of cameramen, Edward Kamara, lauds SLBC's management and organizers for such a training designed to sharpen their skills and techniques in handling camera professionally at work. He encourages his colleagues to treat the training with utmost seriousness. An international trainer from the United States, Momin Bati, expressed his delight to be in Sierra Leone for the first time to exchange ideas and skills with cameramen for effective television content. The Environment Protection Agency, EPA, has shut down the operations of the Shengfeng Mining Company and also confiscated some of its equipment and operating without a valid environmental impact assessment license as mandated by the EPA Act of 2008 as amended in 2010. The Shengfeng Mining Company is mining gold in a village called Kampala in the Kalokoh Chiefdom, Bombali district. Sheku Sumaila has more on that story.
2008, as amended in 2010, says for activity that may impact the environment, be it construction, agriculture, manufacturing, or mining, whosoever is doing it should first acquire an environmental impact assessment license, backed up with the environmental management plan and also community development commitment for the benefit of the people living within their areas of operation. Failure to adhere will, according to the EPA Act, result to a fine not exceeding 50 million leones or a jail term not exceeding 2 years. Shengfeng, a Chinese company, is mining gold in this village called Kampala in the Laminayach section, Kalokoh Chiefdom, Bombali district, without an EIA, which is in violation of the EPA Act. EPA has stopped them before, but what they have resorted to now is clandestine mining, not only without EIA from EPA, but even a valid mining license. They even refuse to rehabilitate dug-out areas, which is also non-adherence to the laws of the land. When a team of EPA officials, civil society, the media, and security personnel arrived here, the village chief, Amadou Kamara, deliberately wanted to divert the attention of the team with deceit that Shengfeng was no longer mining gold in the community. But intelligence from the villagers enabled EPA to discover this new mining site where large-scale mining is taking place. At this site, a lot of mining materials were confiscated and the village chief and the Chinese miner arrested. 3 other Chinese escaped into the nearby bushes. Chief Kamara denied any involvement in the illegal mining, insisting he is not in the know of the illegal mining, as the arrested Chinese miner continued to deny that they are mining even when the evidence was clear that indeed mining is taking place.
Work only here water there. Want to start the work here. National pull this water. National make this.
They are the just Skype us. And they know any time they just start. Look at it. I asked them before the money. And they say they don't pull the maker.
The village chief was arrested for deceit and the Chinese man for illegal mining, and we are taking first to the community people and later to the section chief of Laminaya, where the senior environmental officer, EPA, Sheku explained how mining companies are illegally operating in their communities without benefiting the inhabitants as they remain in abject poverty. The circle of poverty will continue if such activities continue, he said.
To be specific, gold mining pits, and you see locals around, London around, and mercury has been used here during the mining activity. The acquiring of the EIA license is not just about ensuring sustainable environmental management plan and implementation of a community development action plan. It also involves the decommissioning of your project, which involves at the closure of your project, you must rehabilitate your mine area, because what you are seeing here, it's an artificial lake that has been created, which is not good with respect to health for the community, and the use of mercury here is not even good for the health of those using the artificial lake for laundry purposes. Of course, for us as an agency, we will continue to enforce the law, we will continue to make sure sustainable mining practices are being done here in this country.
Bintu Kaifala is Regional Environmental Officer North. She said she had been monitoring the region for illegal operations of mining companies and that she had warned those in the habit of the consequences of their activities.
So this is really sad to see stakeholders key stakeholders in the community conniving with foreigners, and not only conniving with foreigners, but also engage in such activities within their own communities, destroying the very environments upon which they depend. This is really, 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 really sad.
The Chinese man and the confiscated items have been handed over to the police in Makini, whilst investigations continue. Abdul Karim Kuruma, represented the civil society movement of Sierra Leone.
It will take more than 25 to 30 years for that place to settle down. And at the end of the day, even to compensate the community, they will not do it. Understand?
The Minister of Information and Communications, Mohamed Bangura, and SLBC Director General Elvis Banabum Alwell have returned home after attending the 6th African Digital TV Development Seminar in Beijing, China. Star Times organized a seminar which focuses on making digital TV more accessible to users. It will also provide reliable decision-making basis for African governments to be able to develop policies and regulations for digitalization and post-digitalization industry developments. Over 140 officials in broadcasting and television institutions from 41 African and Asian countries attended, including 30 ministerial representatives. Most countries are putting in place strategies to transition their broadcast sectors from analog to digital and a bid to take advantage of the dividends that new digital opportunities present. The transition from analog to digital broadcasting is expected to help nations create opportunities for the provision of ICT applications and multimedia services, and also contribute to the effective use of spectrum and pave the way for digital dividend. The Ministry of Agriculture has commissioned the National Livestock Animal Welfare and Reliable Control Task Force and launched the National Rabies Elimination Program in Freetown. The launch is part of the International End Rabies by 2030, which, according to reports, Sierra Leone has one of the highest densities of stray dogs in the world that are potential carriers of the virus. According to the report, rabies is endemic in the country and more than 500 people die as a result of rabies every year. Sierra Leone has been selected amongst other West African countries to pilot a national strategy for the elimination of dog-mediated rabies 2015 to 2020. Well, to tell us more, we have in the studios the World Animal Protection Regional Director for Africa, Tennyson Williams. It's a pleasure having you, sir, in the studio.
Thank you very much.
Let's start to look at the importance of this particular conference. Dog control used to be the concern of city councils. Why is the Ministry of Agriculture, taking the lead now in terms of looking at ways how they can support the prevention of rabies?
Okay, at the international level, there is what is referred to as the One Health Initiative. And the One Health Initiative is led by the Ministry of Agriculture in all countries in collaboration with the Ministry of Health and international partners such as WHO, FAO, and the World Organization for Animal Health. The specific reason why the Ministry of Agriculture is leading this, because it is considered a zoonotic disease which is normally carried by dogs. And dogs constitute a very important element within society. And the point that we are making right now with the Ministry of Agriculture being required to lead this is to draw serious attention to the problem. As you rightly said in your opening remarks, it is endemic in Sierra Leone. And as part of the health system strengthening process that is ongoing, learning from the Ebola outbreak, etc., we think that we don't need to wait for another outbreak from rabies before we take action. So this is part of the reason why we are here.
Okay, it is also the belief that apart from dogs, there are other cattle, when we talk about agriculture, that also, being infected with the issue itself, rabies.
Well, the problem really is for rabies, it is mainly dog-mediated. There are other animals that could carry the virus, like bats, like foxes, but those ones are not a major threat to rabies being a problem in this country compared with dogs. So the focus is actually with dogs because of the closeness also that is associated between dogs and human population. So the problem really is with dogs. And of course, traditionally what we know is that the dogs are targeted. They become the victims of a problem that most often they are not the ones that create it. Our attitude to dogs is actually one that needs to change. You cannot keep the dog that you cannot take care of, just like human beings. We are advised to have children we can take care of. So what has resulted as out of our behavior, poor behavior or cruelty to dogs, we have large numbers of dogs roaming all over the place. And like you said again, these are potential carriers of the virus.
So what is the significance of rabies to livestock and that to the Ministry of Agriculture?
Well, of course, there are two dimensions to this. The first dimension is that if a rabid dog is to bite a farmer, we will lose that farmer because rabies is 100% fatal. If we lose our farmers in Sierra Leone, it means food security will be impacted. So that will be a problem. The other dimension is that if a rabid dog is to bite an animal directly, we will lose that animal. So from the human dimension, we will lose our social capital, food productivity will go down. From the animal dimension, the dogs can bite livestock, and that will be catastrophic as well. So what we are saying is that our attitude towards dog is quite critical to be able to control rabies.
So is rabies more of a farm issue than a domestic health issue?
Well, I wouldn't say, because dogs are in the category of animals known as companion animals. They are domestic animals, and companion because we keep dogs for various reasons. Firstly, I'm sure, Madam Moderator, you are aware that we'll say the dog is the man's best friend. So that's a partnership that is very historical, and children, young people love dogs, and that's a relationship that needs to be recognized. So dogs are certainly domestic. We don't raise them for any other reason, especially economic, but we raise them because they offer security to us, and they offer companionship to us. But they become a victim when there is a problem because they cannot represent themselves, they cannot speak for themselves. So we take advantage. But the problem really is no dog, for example, around Freetown does not have an owner. Every dog in this city has an owner. Our attitude to them leads them to be on the streets because they go fend, either because we are very cruel to them most often, and they become the problem. And today, what we are saying, drawing from the experience of Ebola, we don't want another problem in Sierra Leone. 500,000 dogs all over the place, as the statistics suggest. I think we need to do something.
Okay, so what are the best steps in terms of preventing people from, contacting rabies?
Okay, I think from our perspective, what we want to first of all establish is that how many dogs do we have in this country? We need to do like we have done the national population census. We think that census data collection needs to be done for number of dogs. The second thing is we must have laws that can actually make sure that these dogs are kept well. So mass vaccination is something that we are also preaching. It is very cheap. If everybody decides to vaccinate their dog once every year, that can actually be a major way to solve the problem, as opposed to trying to kill all the dogs when there is a problem such as rabies. So these are measures that we think are doable. World Animal Protection, in collaboration with its partners, can actually work with the government of Sierra Leone to facilitate an agreement where the government can have access to vaccines for the prevention of rabies within dog populations, because it's much more cheaper to stem the disease at the level of the dog instead of trying to respond to the disease when it gets into human population. It's very expensive because a rabies patient will need 5 vials or five doses of vaccine, whereas one shot in a dog can actually solve the problem.
So before leaving us, I understand that the task force has been set up in terms of trying to look at how they could control, the issue of, unprotected dogs to see how, as a country, we'll be able to put a stop to the increase on rabies in the country. What is expected of that particular task force?
Yes, a task force has been set up at World Animal Protection. Our Africa office is based in Nairobi, that I head as Africa Director. So the operating model that we have come up with to deliver our mandate is to work with partners. So here in Sierra Leone, The organization had historic ties with the Sierra Leone Animal Welfare Association. But right now what we have done is to expand that relationship. So City Council is a member, the Ministry of Agriculture, etc. So there is a national task force that is currently undertaking a dog census in constituency 109 and also undertaking a knowledge, attitude and practice survey. So first of all, get some initial data on what people's knowledge and attitude towards dogs are and what are the numbers of dogs that are in that. The other aspect is that we are looking at the Animal Cruelty Act and the bylaws that City Council has to review them so that they can stand the test of time to act as a deterrent in terms of our attitude towards dogs. So we are piloting those initiatives through the National Task Force, and we are hoping that they should be able to undertake mass awareness campaigns, which we are also supporting. And 28th of September every year is referred to as World Rabies Day. We are beginning to look at what is it that Sierra Leone can embark on this year as part of the 2030 agenda to get the world free of rabies by that time.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, that was the World Animal Protection Regional Director for Africa, Tennessee Williams. The government of Sierra Leone, through the ministries and Agriculture, Trade and Finance, have signed a MOU with the Integrated Solution for Africa International Entrepreneurship. One of the objectives of the MOU is for a general framework of cooperation and mutual commitment between parties of conduct feasibility studies for the implementation of the project. According to the MOU, the studies will estimate the cost or value of the land to be provided by the government of Sierra Leone in accordance with the laws of the land. The Memorandum of Understanding will see the establishment of an onion farm, poultry, and center for research and training in agriculture. The project will help to cut down the importation of chickens and will create jobs and help stimulate economic growth. 10 senior secondary schools from the western area have been schooled on the reduction of teenage pregnancy, reproductive health, and other related sexually transmitted diseases and infections. The two-day session was hosted by a Forum of Sierra Leone Youth Network with support from Airtel. Ibrahim Samuel was at the conference hall of Peace Museum at New Englandville, and he now reports.
Drawn from the east and central and western parts of the country. The pupils were schooled on the effect and causes of teenage pregnancy, sexual reproductive health and rights, and the problems of sexually transmitted diseases and infections. UNFPA's program analyst Salimatu Kemokai said 40% of maternal death occurred as a result of teenage pregnancy. She said our organization believes in preventing teenage pregnancy than responding to it, calling on the pupils to abstain from unwanted pregnancy. Madam Kemokai stressed the need to practice safe sex and sexual reproductive health and rights. The head of corporate social responsibility of Airtel, John Ross Johnson, said Airtel supported the session to complement government's effort in reducing teenage pregnancy in the country. She said promoting quality education is part of our institution's corporate social responsibility, saying that they have also built schools across the country. Madam John Rose said Airtel is also partnering with the First Lady's office in the campaign against teenage pregnancy and reproductive health messages. The Senior Community Health Officer, National Secretariat for the Reduction of Teenage Pregnancy, Carol Vandy, told the pupils that the Secretariat was set up by President Nkrumah in his quest to reduce teenage pregnancy in the country. Mrs. Vandy said teenage pregnancy is alarming in the country, stating that a UNICEF report indicates that over 15,000 girls were impregnated during the Ebola outbreak. She commended the Forum of Sierra Leone Youth Network and Airtel for complementing the Secretariat's effort in its drive to reducing teenage pregnancy in the country. Madam Vandy underscored the need for educating pupils in various schools on the dangers of teenage pregnancy and on sex education. Chairman of the session, Siraji Rollins Kamara, also board member of the Forum of Sierra Leone Youth Network, and Edward Tifa, of the Democrat newspaper spoke of the alarming rates of teenage pregnancy in the country. They said the issue has becoming a social menace and emphasizing the need for proactive measures and policy to address such threats.
The income tax of Appellate has concluded an awareness campaign in Makeni and Kono in the north and eastern regions. The campaign was geared towards educating stakeholders about the establishment, role and mandate of the Commission to ensure that beneficiaries make good use of the facilities at the Commission. Joseph Stanley reports.
National Revenue Authority, councils and the business community in the respective regions, the public relations manager of the Income Tax Board of Appellate Commission, Siemens Alimans
We'll bring you more of that story in our subsequent news broadcast. Due to some technical faults, we cannot bring you all of that story now. Well, coming up next is Business Update with Judith Sana.
Hello and welcome to the business updates. We begin with the foreign exchange rates. The US dollar buys at 6,102 leons and sells at 6,225 leons. Pound sterling buys at 8,119 leons and sells at 8,359 leons. Euro buys at 6,773 leons and sells at 6,905 leons. That's the foreign exchange rate courtesy of Central Bank. The International Monetary Fund's fifth review under the Extended Credit Facility Arrangement for Sierra Leone has approved and disbursed $34.12 million. According to IMF resident representative Yabo Masha, Sierra Leone's economy has deteriorated significantly. She was speaking to journalists at the IMF office, Sambangwa building, Gloucester Street in Freetown. Kivya Jasko has more.
Sierra Leone. The IMF has approved $34.12 million to support the government's economic reform program for stronger and more inclusive growth. It also plays a catalyst role for bilateral and multilateral assistance.
After many years of strong growth, Sierra Leone's economy has deteriorated significantly since mid-2014, when the country was hit by twin shocks of Ebola and sharp decline in iron ore prices. Growth declined from 4.6% in 2014 to negative 12.1% in 2015. The budget and the exchange rate were also under pressure, and the vulnerabilities in the banking system increased substantially.
She added that program performance has been relatively good and that December 2015 quantitative performance criteria were met, whilst performance against the end of September 2015 indicative targets were mixed. She noted that considerable progress was made in key structural reform areas, although a few structural benchmarks were met with delays and others missed.
For 2016, growth is expected to recover moderately. Inflation might edge up slightly, driven mainly by further exchange rate depreciation. The budget implementation is expected to be challenging, even more than in 2015, because there is a decline in budget support as Ebola winds down and donors are reducing their commitments In addition, there is constrained domestic financing, and on top of that, there are some pressures on expenditure from spendings on wage and the delay in eliminating the fuel subsidies.
IMF resident representative pointed out that implementing structural reform will aim at economic diversification as a key to achieving strong and sustainable growth to reduce poverty, and that priority should be given to improving the business climate, enhancing infrastructure, and supporting private sector development.
To address these challenges, the authorities are committed to stepping up reforms and improving public finance management. Key reforms include liberalization of the telecommunications gateway, imposing goods and services tax on all electricity bills, and significant reductions in tax exemptions and duty waivers.
Agriculture, she cited, is a major area to improve the country's economy, noting that goods and services tax on electricity is a law. She noted that Sierra Leone is the lowest country that has the depreciation of foreign currency, and that the fall of the economy is due to international reasons. Projected growth rate for 2016, she said, is 4.3%.
That report was read by Princess Gibson on the $34.12 million approved by IMF. The people of Britain have voted to exit the European Union, but what does the aftermath mean for Sierra Leone, a former colony, and has benefited from its Commonwealth membership from education, health, and aid? Lucian Ganda picks up the story.
Bookmakers and economists are predicting serious recession, but the governor of the Bank of England, Mark Carney, has assured entrepreneurs that modalities have been put in place to address any eventualities. Sierra Leone, though a sovereign nation like all former colonies of Britain, has been receiving aid from British charities including Oxfam, Tear Fund, Helen Keller, and Action Aid, among several others. Through DFID, there has been budgetary support to Sierra Leone and has been funding many government projects. DFID recently provided $15 million grant as part of the $55 million that the World Bank needed to support agribusiness in the country. The European Union recently funded the construction of the Freetown-Conakry Highway and undertook to pay about $720 billion loans for construction of the Banda Juma-Liberia Highway, expected to boost trade between Sierra Leone and Liberia. Financial remittances from the diaspora to family members and loved ones in Sierra Leone is another important aspect of the economy, and according to economists, that aspect is not properly captured. Total amount of remittances from Britain alone in a year may run into millions of pounds. If there is an employment boom in Britain and the pound sterling does not fall to the euro and the US dollar, then Sierra Leone stands to benefit from Brexit. If it is the opposite in the coming weeks and months, then Sierra Leone will see a drop in remittances. How will UK's decision to quit the EU play out on Sierra Leone is highly a wait-and-see affair. We now bring you clips of bitter exchanges as the European Parliament debates Britain's exit from the European Union. The central figure in the Leave campaign is the UK Independence Party leader, Nigel Farage.
Leave campaign, it was time to rejoice.
Let June the 23rd go down in our history as our Independence Day.
He warned the Chamber that Britain's departure was the beginning of the end for Europe.
We now offer a beacon of hope to Democrats across the rest of the European continent. I'll make one prediction this morning. The United Kingdom will not be the last member state to leave the European Union.
Eurosceptic political parties in several other countries, Austria, Hungary, the Netherlands and France, are now calling for referendums of their own, especially France's right-wing Front National and its leader, Marine Le Pen, who's delighted with the Brexit. But for those considering...
Business News, Lucian Ganda, Freetown.
Well, that's the business update. Many thanks for your time. I'm Judith Son.
Well, up next is Sport Update with Frances Bernard.
For Sport Now on News Hour, as a way of supervising sporting events in the country, the Ministry of Sports has intervened in the Central One Football Association Kufa final of the Inter-Area Community League between Fullerton Community and Mountain City. The intervention from the ministry comes at a time when violence activities at the parade grounds have been a concern for many residents in Freetown. The Minister of Sports, Ahmed Kanu, was earlier on in our studio and he spoke about his ministry's intervention.
If you recall, on the 12th of June, there was this semi-final match between Susan's Bay and Mountain City. I was myself heading to the venue to have a feel of events in that venue, only to be alerted that there was some violence in the area. And I waited for a week, hoping that the relevant authorities, that is the Western Area Football Association and of course SLFA, would take a position on the matter, and nobody did. So I summoned the parties. They came to me, that is the organizer, and of course WAFA and SLFAC. Sports should be an avenue for social cohesion, and where you use sports for violence, it's the responsibility of the ministry to intervene and ask the relevant questions. That's precisely what we did. Well, when I asked the relevant questions, I realized that one, the venue for the event was such that it was not up to speed. And these are questions the Western Area Football Association and of course the SLFA should have asked. If an event is being organized, which is sport related and it's under the supervision of a specific area, you have to sanction that event, meaning you have to ensure compliance to certain regulations. But at this particular event, those questions were not asked, so I had to intervene. So one area of intervention is the level of officiating. Yes, we are not saying the match should not be played there. If you take, let us look back. Who owns parade grounds? That's the property of the RSLAF. Over the years, there has been, the level of encroachment has increased rapidly to the extent that you have no more than 2 meters away from the lines, the sidelines or the baselines. Even if you are a goalkeeper, you are regularly at a threat because you are very close to the crowd, right? Looking at all of this and the publicity, given that there has not been very many competitions over the years, in the past 2 or 3 years, in Freetown in particular. So those who have football loving people who want to still have a feel of what football looks like, how it feels to enjoy football being played. So with the level of publicity that KOFA has undertaken, you realize that everybody was trekking or trotting towards the parade ground. So to the extent that a 3,000 or 4,000 seater or 3,000 or 4,000 capacity stadium or facility was almost accommodating beyond 8,000. And so at the slight...
He is Minister of Sports, Ahmed Kanu. And now to some international sports news. France scored 5 to bring a brutal end to the Iceland fairy tale and set up an intriguing Euro 2016 semi-final against world champions Germany in Marseille on Thursday. There was almost a sense of disbelief around the Stade de France at the break as the host nation walked off with a 4-0 advantage, 2 of the goals coming in close minutes of the half. And finally, for sports update on News Hour, we bring you tennis. Andy Murray made it through to the 16th with victory over Australian's John Millman. Moribit Milman 637562 after the wall number 67 put up some stand resistance on center court. The Scot is the highest seed in the draw at number 2 following Djokovic's loss to America's Sam Querrey. But that's all we can provide for you in this edition of Sports Update on Newsa. I am Frances Barnard.
To end the news, we look at the main points again. Environment Protection Agency EPA has shut down the operations of the Shenzhen Mining Company. The Ministry of Agriculture has commissioned the National Livestock, Animal Welfare and Rabies Control Task Force in Freetown, and government of Sierra Leone has signed a MOU with the Integrated Solution for Africa International Entrepreneurship for the improvement of agriculture in the country. With that all in this edition of News Hour, on behalf of my news editor Ibrahim Ansari, news producer Wanato Conte, I am Doreen Kalokoh in Freetown. For more information about our programs, do send us an email to contact us at slbc.sl. Thanks for watching. Have a lovely day. God bless you.